Hi everyone and welcome to another video on Majestic Valley where I am editing the valley and preparing it for phase 2 where I'll be introducing a path network and modifying the terrain so it kind of looks a little bit less like Riverview, because this is what the map is. It's an edited version of Riverview. And to do that, I am changing up the river and adding a forest. And it's kind of in an area of the world that I haven't played in much. So to me, I'm kind of okay with making these types of changes, heavy kind of terrain changes, because they're in a part of the world that I haven't even really sent my Sims to. So it kind of does make sense in my headcanon, really. Like, I mean, if there was any other changes that were in the spaces where the Sims actually live and interact with a lot, then I would have to kind of come up with some sort of reason for the terrain kind of changing. And I thought about it for a while, and I thought maybe I wanted to bridge the river and eventually, say that there was some land reclamation and completely, I guess, fill in one part of the river. Because what I'm referring to in Riverview, if you know that map well, there's actually the island in between the river. And I was thinking about kind of filling in the land on one side of the river so it was just all one piece of land rather than an island with one river flowing through it. And I thought about doing that, but on the side that my Sims actually interact with a lot. But then I thought that would be a bit too much work. And, I didn't really kind of envision that type of work going on in a community so small. So I've kind of just tinkered around with areas of the world that I haven't played in, and then because my Sims haven't really seen that part of the world, then I can just, if they didn't see it, then it didn't happen. They don't know what it was like before. So as far as I'm concerned, I can do whatever I want in the space that they've never been to. A small apology because I have partially recorded some of this, and it wasn't until I'd pretty much laid out the town square, which you can see right here, that I decided that I wanted to record it. And to give you an idea of kind of what or where I am in the world right now, I mean, it's pretty much where the community grounds are. And this town square that you can see right now, that big lot in the middle, is where the community grounds are, with the big tree in the market. So that's just to give you a sense of direction. I've linked all of the big lots with the founding families together with a path network. So I'm using the dirt path here. It's a good path. I mean, it's pretty much a default path that you get with Creator World. It's a bit funny with the intersections though, because the intersections aren't really designed to have more than kind of 2 paths connecting off them. So if I wanted to do 3 paths connecting off the intersection, then they would look a bit funny. As you can see here, there's like a gap. You might see it if I slow down, run an intersection, but I do a bit more with the paths to kind of make them look a bit better. Now, in terms of using Creator World, it's a very finicky tool. I mean, I don't hate it, but it has a lot of quirks to it. And I mean, I know it tends to, like, I've seen some other Creator World videos and stuff like that other creators have done. And I know there's been like complaints of crashing and stuff like that, but I was lucky I didn't get any crashes when I was doing this. Probably the biggest issue that I had, and you'll see it coming up, is removing objects, where especially when they're in places that you don't want them to be anymore and you want to move them or get rid of them, then I had a lot of issues with that. So pretty much, yeah, working on the path and adding in an intersection up to the cemetery. I do need a cemetery in the valley now because a couple of Sims and some pets have died, so I need somewhere to put them. And so I'm getting a path up to the cemetery now, and it comes off the Grovehurst plot. And the path goes, I mean, I don't even know how to say the directions of the valley, but it goes left and then it goes on up to the Beauforts. Yeah, the Beauforts, yeah. Okay. It's really hard to get a sense of direction when there's like no north, south, east, or west, so I can't really describe it that well. So I'm just leveling out the path now, making sure it's flat. And and I'm kind of looking around this area of the world. This is by the Beaufort plot, and because this is an edited version of a river view, there's some areas where you can see where the roads have been, and I kind of wanted to get rid of those a bit. So I was kind of playing around with this area because I could see, especially when I was in game, that a road had been here. So I just wanted to kind of hide that a bit. And to do that, I had to get rid of some plants, and there were those, I can't remember what the plant is called, but the pink plant, the kind of that crawling flat plant with pink flowers. When I originally made this world, or edited Riverview basically, I placed down a whole bunch of plants, and when I was editing the area again in this part here, I tried to get rid of them, and I just could not get rid of them. Like, they were impossible. It took me almost half an hour to get rid of maybe half a dozen plants. If I tried to click on them, they just wouldn't select, and I had to look at them at really strange angles to be able to click on them and actually remove them. And I know that when you place a plant, it says the name of it, and if you want, you can go and search it. But I'm pretty sure that when you merge the trees, the plants get merged along with them, and then you unmerge them, all of the names of the objects disappear. So you can't actually see. So I can, for example, go looking for the name of that plant and then just go and select them in the filter tab and then delete them. So that was a big pain and a mission. It was not fun. You can see here, so this grass here, I didn't like it because some of it was floating. So I wanted to fix that up in the new, or phase 2. And you can see, like, I'm just having so much trouble with this grass. To the point where I had to go underneath the world and try and click it and remove it. And I was able to get a couple, but still, it was very persistent. It did not want to leave. In the end, it did all go. I did manage to get rid of all of it. And then I placed some of these swamp grasses, not these big groups, but individual ones, and just sunk them into the ground a little bit more so they looked more like, I don't know what kind of grass you'd call it, but I don't know. Just like a nice brown grass on a hill. I don't know what the specific name for it is, but it looks nice anyway. So I sunk them in a bit more so they look a little less bushy and more like grass, and I think they look better than what was there before. And moving on, what am I doing now? I am moving on to... yes, this is where I'm working on the river. So I had to get rid of all the decals. I don't know why I got started on it and then moved on to something else. Okay, now I'm back on the river. So I had to get rid of all the decals, all the plants and spawners and stuff that were in the river, in and around it, all the trees and anything that was in the way, and then start filling in the river. And I wasn't looking forward to doing this because I knew it was going to be probably the most laborious task, because there's a lot of kind of objects already there, all the trees and stuff are there, and everything is, at a certain elevation, and to kind of fill in the river like this and then fill in all the gaps and level out the terrain, it does kind of create a bit of an obstacle when it comes to editing the spawners and all that are already there. What I mean by that is, if I manipulate terrain that already has objects on it, then sometimes the objects will end up floating or sinking in the ground, which can be a big pain to fix, because then you kind of have to individually raise or lower the objects, and yeah, it can be very time consuming, and you'll see that in just a minute. And I can say quite confidently that I spent a good hour manipulating objects that were messed up by the terrain, and yeah, that wasn't very fun, but it had to be done because otherwise I'd have floating trees everywhere. But I did need that ground to be level, so, or at least, get rid of all the weird kinks and stuff from me just kind of going in and filling in the river the way I did. So I'm touching up on some terrain paint here, Making sure it's all consistent with some nice dirt, and then I'm looking for those rocks, like those little river stones, and yeah, just making sure everything looks nice and neat. And then after that, oh no, now I'm doing the edge of the river. So it's got this nice kind of dark green grass around it. So just going around the edge of the river, cleaning that up, making sure it's all consistent. And it looks very harsh right now, but I come back and kind of feather out the terrain with the lighter grass a bit later on. So yeah, it looks really harsh there. It looks like I've just drawn it on, which is what I did, but now I need to feather it out. Now, at the time of me recording this, the Sims are already moved into the world, so everything is pretty much good to go for Phase 2. Moving them wasn't too difficult, I just used NRUS Porter for that, although I did have a slight issue where I was placing lots from this world into the new version. I think that was because I loaded up the original Majestic Valley save and then just went back to the main menu and then went into the new version and tried to place lots. It wouldn't let me place them. I had to kind of fiddle around with it for a bit before I realized, what if I just try restarting the game? And then that worked. As you can see, I just had to do a whole bunch of trees, pushing them back into the ground because they were floating. There is now in the new version, I found one tree that's floating and I'm contemplating what to do with it because it's a tree that is, in my opinion, aesthetically pleasing, and I feel like if I removed it, then the place would look kind of boring, and you know, it's not a huge deal, but I mean, when the time comes, I'll deal with it. But at this stage, yeah, there is one tree that I found that is floating. So, so these rapids, now, I don't know if this is going to be any help to anyone, probably not, but if you place them on the river, then they need to be slightly above it, otherwise they will clip and the rapid effect will be all flickery and not very pretty. So they do need to be lifted slightly above the water, and I guess this was a bit of a laborious task as well, but it all comes together nicely. I like the visual effects, and I really want the place to look wild and, you know, untouched in a way. Because I mean, initially when I had the Sims first move here, there was no human civilization. Do I call it human or Sim civilization? Civilization. So there were no people here, and I kind of want to maintain that in aspects, in areas of the world where I haven't really played with the Sims much. And excuse that siren, I had to stop the recording for a minute. The joys of living in the city. So yeah, I'm just going in with the river details, putting in some rocks and some plants and some lilies, just making it look nice and natural. Some serene landscapes, I guess. And this isn't the most exciting thing to do. I mean, I don't mind the detailing aspect of it, but when it's really repetitive like this, I do need to take breaks. And I think I took a couple of breaks in between putting all these rocks down. But yeah, there's a lot of rocks. Now I'm moving on to routing, and what I wanted to do firstly was fix up some routing issues that I noticed in the world. They weren't really game-breaking issues or anything like that, just areas in the world where I saw Sims moving about in places where they shouldn't, walking up super steep hills, that kind of stuff. There were some spawnables that I placed in unroutable areas, and so I had to get rid of those, but for the most part it's just kind of making sure that the routing is realistic, making sure all these super steep parts are covered up and that the paths were accessible, that there wasn't any blue kind of routing paint over them. This area here was another area where it was quite obvious that a road went through here, so I went through and played with the terrain a bit just to get rid of it. Well, not get rid of it, but make it less obvious that there was a road there before. Now I'm just working on the path that goes over the hill and ensuring that it's flat and not crazy windy. Going through and fixing up some other pieces of the terrain. And now I'm going and adding the small animal spawners, small pet spawners. So some turtles by the river. Turtles everywhere. And next up are, let's see, what am I doing next? Oh, I moved on to trees. Okay, so this is actually where I get started on the forest. Previously in the world, there's a big open kind of farmland area in this space. Now, I don't want the entire world to basically be associated with farms. I mean, I do have a couple of farms on my in the world right now, but I don't want the world to be a farm focused world. I just kind of want it to eventually turn into something a little more suburban with what I imagine to be a nature reserve, and that's basically where the forest is going to go. One thing to be careful of in Creative World is if you place an object, be sure to press escape so that before you select another object, because otherwise it will automatically place down. As I learned the hard way there, I had a whole bunch of trees that I was looking, I was just looking through trees, and then instead of hitting escape before going to the next tree, I just automatically went and started clicking on the next object. But be sure to hit escape when you are finished with an object. And with the forest here, I'm going and adding a whole bunch of oak trees. I love the oak trees in The Sims 3. They are my favorite tree, one of my favorite trees, and the black gum trees. They're just really basic looking, good basic looking trees. And they pretty much fit in anywhere you put them. But I didn't want it to be a forest entirely of oak. So yeah, as you can see, I'm putting in some black gum trees. But I also put in some birch trees closer to the river. And yeah, so I'm not too worried about the performance. At this stage, I'm just gonna wing it and play with it. I know this is a huge amount of trees, but I did want this to look like a lush forest. Now I've loaded up the world and there isn't any lag, so I'm not too concerned about all these trees. Eventually I do see this as being kind of like a nature reserve, so it's not all going to be development and buildings and stuff like that. I do want there to be a significant area of the world that is purely nature and somewhere where Sims can kind of go to hang out and get away from kind of suburban life and even urban life if I get to the point where, it becomes a bustling city. Who knows? I'm pretty much at the behest of The Sims 3's performance. So I don't know if I'll ever get to that phase, but if that does happen, then I do want there to be somewhere for Sims to go to kind of escape the hustle and bustle. Now you can see here, I'm putting in this super dark grass in the forest area. Initially because at the moment it looks like pasture kind of grass, and I wanted it to be grass or a texture that kind of looked more like a forest. And as it stands right now, this dark grass looks awful in my opinion. I do not like it, and so I put it all down just to see what it looked like. And yeah, I didn't like it much at all. It was just too dark and too uniform. I just wanted the forest to look a little more, the textures to be a little more kind of dynamic and varied. And what I tried to do to remedy that was have some of the pasture textures poke through, so it wasn't just completely this dark green patch of land. And that was the other thing as well. From far away, when zoomed right out, it just looked like a dark green blob on the map. So I experimented with some other terrain paints. As you can see here, I am playing around with a darker grass covering up the pasture texture, thinking that might make a difference, especially getting rid of the kind of the harsh lines of the edge of the forest. And to me, that didn't really look any better. I mean, I'm soldering on right now, but yeah, it doesn't last very long. I'm just doing some dirt around the rocks as well. And then I thought I would try and sprinkle some dirt throughout this dark grass and see what that would look like. If usually in forests there are kind of, dirt patches and stuff. So I thought, if I added that, then maybe it would look better. But as you can see, it doesn't look much better. Now it just looks like a big green blob with random patches of brown. And then I discovered some more grass. I don't even remember placing that grass, but that was a mission to get rid of as well. So I finally got rid of that and continued on with adding the brown, or the dark brown dirt. And what I like about the forest is that it's not just completely trees. There are some areas in it that are kind of, I wouldn't say hidden, but they're, more secluded. So there are the rock piles and they've got some spawners around them. And then I've also got like a little kind of, almost like a flower garden. And there are some insects and flowers, I think, and seeds and some other small pets that Sims can kind of go to and collect if they want to. Now that area of terrain, I come back and fix that, but it looks terrible. I was having a bit of an issue removing the terrain paint that I put there. And I think at this stage, I decided that I didn't want the dark green grass anymore, but instead of getting rid of it completely, I would go over it again with the kind of the medium shade grass in a more kind of very low opacity, and yeah, and see if it kind of fixed it up a little bit, fixed up this kind of green blob, which it's doing. So you can see it's pretty much the medium grass with tiny wee splotches of dark green grass amongst it. And to me, that looked much more natural. So I'm glad I found this solution, because yeah, I was really, really kind of annoyed that I just couldn't get it to look right. And when I finally moved on to this method here, and I was pleased with the look, I felt much better. Now, in terms of the world and where it's going and kind of my plans for it, now that I'm in phase 2, I will maybe add a couple of new households, but not right at the beginning. I feel like I'm going to be in phase 2 for a little while. I want the empty lots that I have to be completely filled up, and I want it to get to a point where I'm having to add new lots to kind of fit things or people in. Once I'm having to add new lots in the edit town mode in game, then I'll look at moving to phase 3, which will just be an extension of the path network and possibly some bridges across the river and moving the development over to the other side of the river. But I also want there to be another milestone, because the milestone for me moving from phase 1 to phase 2 was the ability to build the consignment store. And I haven't quite thought of what the phase 3 milestone will be yet. Phase 3 milestone will be. So definitely when I get to having to expand the world by placing lots in edit town mode, because I've run out of space basically. But also I want there to be more of a significant milestone, so there's some sort of achievement where I, for example, maybe I'm at the point where I can place a town hall. But I haven't decided how exactly I'm going to justify adding a town hall, because it's a full-on career rabbit hole. So if I place the town hall, then I'll need to kind of make up some rules, or not necessarily rules, but some aspects of gameplay that justify me placing a town hall. And that's pretty much with all the rabbit holes, for example, the bookstore and the supermarket, those types of things. It's pretty much dependent on some households reaching milestones. For example, the Scriven family, once they have enough money to open up the bookstore and run it and own it, then that's the justification behind placing it. And so I still haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that with the town hall yet. Because the town hall's not going to be an ownable lot. I don't even think you can make the town hall an ownable lot. Maybe you can, but I don't want that to be the case, because it's, it's a public building, so I don't want anyone to own it per se. But yeah, many things to ponder. So I just placed some more spawners in the world, some small pet spawners, and then I realized that some spawners that I had in the world were actually outside of routable area, so I had to go and fix that up and change some of the routing terrain paint. And then I took a look at this rock formation, and I realized it was exactly in the same spot as the rock formation at the back of the map behind the forest. So I tried to rotate it, sink it into the ground, And then I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to replace it with a whole bunch of new rocks. The only thing is that I then had to rearrange all the plants and all the spawners, which was a bit of a pain, but it looks nice in the end. I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. And what I've done in this world is have certain plants in unique areas of the map, so they'll only be found in that place on the entire map. In this area here, this is where some bulrushes are found, those kind of green looking grasses. But the other plants that I use, the huckleberry, the buckhorn, and the boxwood, I think it's called, are found all over the world. But then in certain pockets of the world, there'll be other kind of random plants that you can't find anywhere else. So just to make certain areas feel a little more unique and not so monotonous. And now I'm back in the town center, just fixing up some of the path elevations, making sure the lots line up nicely with the edges. There's no kind of weird tearing issues. I did notice on the Nung's plot that there was a bit of a tearing issue from the lot being below the ground level of the world. So there was that kind of weird, tearing issue is basically what it is. So I did fix that in this version. And now I'm going through and adding some plants and other landscaping bits and pieces to the town square. So some lavender, some rocks, some buckhorn, some boxwoods. Actually, there's some ferns and some dandelions as well. Because I figured, this is an area that's being developed, so the residents would be doing their part to make it look pretty. And yeah, so it's kind of like it's an interesting development because now it's starting to look, the world is starting to look a little more developed, and it looks like people live here now. It doesn't look like the wilderness anymore. There's some deliberate, planting of plants and placements of rocks and all that kind of stuff, as well as a whole path network. But besides that, you can see it's certainly starting to change, which is what I'm really enjoying about this whole process, is just seeing the change over time and how different everything looks after everything I've done. So what I really like about the town square is actually these nice curved paths at the edge of it, because it kind of gives a sense of I guess direction to the town square. So I do want it to be facing the river, and these kind of curved paths accentuate the community lot that is above the big community lot that's one of the big community lots that's by the community grounds. I'm just going to stop trying to get a sense of direction in this world because I just sound pathetic. So now I'm adding in some lights to the kind of like these, they're not roads, and I don't envision them becoming roads. The community kind of, or the town center, or the town square, is going to remain a path network right up until I get to the last phase of the world, I guess. It's going to stay a path network, and the roads are going to go around it if need be. So yeah, I'm just adding some lights here. The first lights in Majestic Valley, and these lights, I don't imagine them as using electricity. They might be like gas lamps or something, because those were how streetlights operated before electricity. So don't fret, my world does not have electricity yet, although in phase 2 it may get some basic electricity. But I haven't decided yet how that's going to occur. There's so many things that I have plans for, but I don't actually know how I'm actually going to implement them. I just know that eventually I'll need them. So yeah, what am I doing now? Still working on the lights, trying to make sure that they're evenly placed, and playing around with the position placements there in the property browser tab. That's really handy. I didn't actually realize I could manipulate that so well, because I wanted these lights to be perfectly placed, dead center, and looking amazing. I turned off or changed the time of day so I could see if the lights turned on, but they didn't. Now this big lot here, I decided to divide it up into 2 lots, because one huge lot was just a bit I couldn't think of what to put there other than maybe the town hall, but I don't want the town hall to be in the town square. I want the town hall to be more of in the downtown area. This isn't the downtown area, it's not going to be. It's just kind of like a small, I guess, suburban shopping area, maybe. I don't know. But it's not going to be the downtown area. Now, I decided to blend in the path a little bit, and I'm going with this dark terrain paint now because my original plan was to make the dirt paths invisible. And you can see there I was looking into doing it, and then I thought that I can't remember why I stopped, but then I was just like, nah, I don't think that's going to work very well. I just will have the visible Maxis dirt paths, and then I will blend it in with some terrain paint that actually matches the texture of the path. So here I am going over it again, but I didn't want the path to kind of be so rigid. I wanted it to look a little more natural. I mean, the opacity of the path, it does kind of, it's not just like the paved path. It's not just a big square sharp network. It does have, some nice faded edges, but I wanted to make it look a little less neat. Because, yeah, at the moment it feels like it looks too neat, so I wanted to make it look a bit more rough. And so after this, I don't know, what am I going to do after this? Create a world speed videos aren't the most exciting to talk over. I mean, I've pretty much said everything I want to say in terms of the world and where I'm taking it and all that. But I'm just linking up the path network that goes over the mountain to the path network that goes alongside the river. Making sure it all lines up nicely. And I know there's complaints about the functionality of the, placing networks in Creator World, but I actually find it quite satisfying. It can be a bit tricky when you're trying to do like sharp bends and stuff like that. That can be quite difficult, but I find it satisfying when you place two pieces together and it snaps, and being able to kind of manipulate the curves by pulling on those squares. It's probably one of my most favorite things to do in Creator World is to draw the networks and, tug them and shape them however you want. Here I'm just getting rid of some random things lying about the world. And now I'm moving on to actually fixing up the lots now that I've placed them. So pretty much what you're seeing here is the world is all perfect and ready to go. And I'm placing the lots that were in phase 1 of Majestic Valley into phase 2. So these are copies of everything that I built in phase 1, and I've just placed them down. And because I placed them on lots where the terrain was pretty uneven, I had to go through and just level up the terrain and make sure it looked okay. And then I went into nighttime and I saw how good it looked with the lights around the world there. So super pleased with how it's turned out. Now this is Celeste on the Baker's lot, and he had some really, really weird terrain on his lot because I pretty much just placed it from Edit Town mode. So it was just on some raw, untouched land, and all those quirks kind of transferred over to his new lot, so I had to fix that up. The Finance lot didn't really have to make many changes, although I did have to remove some of the spawners because I think that might influence the value of the lot. Same with the Huntingtons here, didn't really need to do much with theirs. The Nungs, like I said earlier, I just had to go and fix up the tearing issue. Well, I had already fixed it now, but there was just a little bit of uneven terrain that I had to fix up. And the Grovehursts didn't have to do much there, but with the Beauforts, I thought, oh wow, now I actually have paths to the lots. I can place letterboxes next to the path. So I went back and did all that kind of cute stuff. And now we are looking at before and afters. So here's the town square before, and here it is now with all the lots placed. And here is a shot of the pasture area where all the farmland was before. And now it's a beautiful lush forest, soon to be a nature reserve. Here's another view looking over the Beaufort's house with the town square in the background. Looking all nice there. And this is a view from the Nungs and the Grovehursts. We're looking at their houses. And lastly, looking at the map. So this is what it looked like before. And here is the after. And that concludes this video. Once again, I thank you for watching and putting up with my terrible voiceover. But I can proudly say that the next time I play in Majestic Valley, I will be playing in Phase 2. So there's going to be a full-on path network. I'm so excited for the gameplay that's going to come along with it. And if you want to follow along with the gameplay, I am on Twitch, which is where I stream Majestic Valley, but I also upload my streams as edited highlights onto my channel here. Again, thanks for watching, and I will see you later.